The biggest part of a fish's diet is aquatic insects. These insects spend the majority of their life in or on the water, and most of the flies we use in fly fishing imitate these bugs. And so the more we know about aquatic insects, the more fish we're gonna put in the net. There are 4 main types of aquatic insects, and today we're gonna talk about the biggest and baddest of them all. We're talking all about stoneflies. Stoneflies are big insects that kind of look like dinosaurs. Since they're so big, they're a high value meal ticket and fish will readily eat them when they're active. Stoneflies are most common in the West, but are also found in very clean, highly oxygenated water in the Midwest and back east. So how do we identify these big bulky bugs? Stonefly nymphs are very similar in appearance to mayfly nymphs, but are much larger. They've got 2 tails, 3 pairs of legs, 2 antennae, and a distinctly segmented body. Stonefly adults, they're also really big, have 2 antennae, 3 pairs of legs, 2 tails, and a distinctly segmented body. Their wings are flat and lay on top of each other when they're not flying. And one thing to note is that stoneflies are notoriously bad flyers. They sort of stumble around in the air and will regularly fall in the water only to become fish food. And don't worry about trying to write all this stuff down. We put together a Stonefly pocket guide, which includes everything that we're talking about today, the pictures, the graphics, all the recommended flies. I'll throw a link in the description if you're interested. Now let's dive into a stonefly's life cycle and how we can use that to our advantage as anglers. Stoneflies are easy. They've only got 2 stages. They begin life as a nymph, clinging onto rocks, branches, and other structure at the bottom of the river. These nymphs can live for up to 3 years before they morph into adults. Unlike other aquatic insects, when stoneflies are ready to reach their adult stage, they'll swim up and climb onto something outside of the water. Then they'll wiggle out of their nymphal husk, leaving behind a creepy looking remnant. At this point, they'll fly around and mate before returning to the water to lay their eggs. There are a bunch of common stoneflies that hatch throughout the year, but the bulk of stonefly activity goes from early to late summer. We've got small black winter stones. These hatch in midwinter to early spring, usually from February through March, when there's still a bit of snow on the ground. Salmon flies, these are the largest stonefly and have bright orange highlights, which is where their name comes from. And these bugs are found almost exclusively throughout the western United States. Yellow sallies, these are smaller stoneflies with a bright yellow body and red butt. These start hatching in May and last through August in some places. However, the peak of yellow sally hatches tends to be in June and July. Golden stones. These might be the most abundant of all stoneflies and will hatch from May through August. Stoneflies are abundant in the West and prefer very clean, cold, highly oxygenated water. Because of that, you'll find a lot of them in freestone streams and faster moving riffly water. These insects usually hatch all day, but in my experience, the peak of the hatch seems to be midday. Now the moment you've all been waiting for, let's talk about flies. These are some of the patterns that I use to imitate stoneflies and that I keep in my box year round. For our nymphs, which are gonna imitate those baby stoneflies living at the bottom of the river, I love the Pat's rubber legs, golden stones, 20-incher stone, copper john, and prince nymph. And for our dries, which will imitate the adults on the surface, I love the Chubby Chernobyl, probably the greatest fly ever created, golden stones, salmon flies, yellow sally, and the VFC signature royal flush. Fishing with stoneflies is an absolute blast. I mean, what's better than watching big fish come up and smack big foam bugs? So now let's head out to the river and get a piece of that big fish action for ourselves.
Now that you're an expert on stoneflies, I'm going to prove to you that you can actually catch fish on these giant, crazy looking bugs. We're out here on the water, it's middle summer, and there are stoneflies everywhere. Literally, as me and Alex were walking to the river, we were like batting them off of us. One tried to crawl up my nose, like 3 of them were nested in my beard. They are everywhere. So it's a really good chance to put into practice everything we just learned about these critters. What I've done is I've picked a golden stonefly as my dry fly because the stoneflies buzzing around are golden stones right now. And then I've just got a Pat's rubber legs as my dropper. They work for me. I can fish them everywhere there's stoneflies and get the job done. So that's my rig, and we're gonna see if we can find a few fish.
What do you see here, Spencer?
I see promise and potential. No, I see a big push of current over there on the left, and then I see slow water here, and I see a nice seam working all the way up. So I'm gonna start down and just fish my way up the seam and see what happens.
Do you do anything different when you're fishing stoneflies, or is it just like a normal dry dropper rig?
It's just a normal dry dropper rig. It does pay to slow your cast up a little bit because you're fishing two pretty big flies and they're a little heavier, and you can cast them a little bit easier if that loop is open a bit more. So I'm not going to be casting as tight of a loop as I would be with a single dry fly, for instance. And I'm casting across my body right here because I'm trying not to hook Alex like I did 3 times yesterday while we were filming. So I'm not casting across my body for any weird reason. Just he's off to right there, and I don't want to put a hook through his ear. Where I come from, we would call that suboptimal. So I'm working this slower water first. The fish might not be in it. They might be in the little bit quicker water where there's a bit more oxygen. But I'm gonna work this slow water pretty well before I move into the quicker water. Just remembering that concept of working close to far. There we go. Oh! That guy moved for that big dry fly. And he was off in that slower water, so it's a very good thing that I didn't just immediately walk up and cast into the quicker stuff. That is exhibit like 12 of why you really work all the water before you move on, because I could have very easily spooked that fish. Me missing that fish was a case of just not being ready for it. So that's all me.
Too early? Too late?
Probably too early, if I had to guess. I just got really excited. I was like, oh, fish!
Yeah, the first one of the day will do it to you.
And it was bigger than I expected too. Like, whatever it was had a nice big head on it, and I wasn't expecting a fish that size. So I'm not really getting bottom with that dropper. And one thing we know about stoneflies is they spend the majority of their life down there on the bottom of the river, right? They're down there for 1 to 3 years, isn't that right, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 to 3 years they spend time down on the riverbed. So you do want to make sure that when you're fishing stoneflies, you've got that nymph down close to the bottom. And I either don't have a long enough dropper or not enough weight on, so I might change that in a minute. There we go. Took the nymph right as we were talking about it. And in that slower water too. Where's my off-camera net man?
I'm filming. Here.
Oh, thank you. Oh! That was a better fish. Holy, that was awful. Awful management of the fight. That was terrible. That was a nice brown trout. That was better than I expected. I completely screwed up the fight. I had way too much tension on him. I wasn't paying attention to the rod angle. That's all me. He broke the dropper off. When those big ones get away, man, it doesn't hurt any less. But at least I got something to drown my sorrows in. All right, trying to get redemption after I lost that fish. Only really good thing about that is I had to tie a new dropper on, so I added a bit of length to it. Like I mentioned, I didn't know if I was down quite deep enough, so put a little bit of length on it, and now we're gonna see if I can hook into that fish's friend.
Big brother.
Well, there's something right there. deeper dropper, and it was on like Donkey Kong. I'm gonna keep the fish up above me this time. That was the problem I had last time. He got downstream and the angle was bad. Okay. Not the best fish fighting today. Apparently I don't know what I'm doing, but I didn't lose my dropper, so I got that going for me. I am gonna lose my hat though. This is why you never fly fish in Wyoming. A, we could be attacked by a grizzly bear at any moment. A wolf could eat us. And then this wind. It's like a tornado. Normally I've got a chest pack and I've got my net hanging off the back of it, but I gotta wear this dadgum contraption, so I ain't got that. Alex decided to fashion this for me though, so we'll see. No more off-camera net man, not with these fish.
This is proof. We learn from our mistakes.
Some of us do.
Were they in the faster or the slower stuff?
Those two were kind of both on, right on the seam of it. I'm just working. The first one that I caught was in the slower stuff. First one I hooked. There we go. That took the dry fly. I gave up. Alex, let's go. Bunch of crap. Fish don't cooperate.
All right, so here at VFC, we have a very strict 3 strikes and you're out policy. So I just couldn't take it anymore. What we've learned today, just don't set the hook like Spencer. I mean, that was embarrassing. Let's catch some fish.
What are you seeing, Alex?
Well, I'm seeing a bunch of fish rising, so that's kind of a no-brainer. But we've got fast water, really fast current right through the middle, and then as the water is coming up against the banks, that causes friction, so it slows down. So we've got a nice seam right here on the side, and there's a foam line, and there's fish rising, so another one just smacked a stonefly right there, so I'm excited. I'm gonna try and stay behind and stay a little bit lower than normal. I don't wanna get in the water, that might spook them, but I wanna stay low and stay behind them so I also don't spook them. There we go.
Which one did it eat?
Ate the dropper. Oh my gosh.
Alex, is it a whitefish?
Yeah, that's why it's so easy to get in. All right, and back you go. All right, let's go get a trout. We're gonna try and get over to the bank. Nice little sandy spot. We're gonna kneel down. Oh yeah, nice. No! That was a bad hook set. That wasn't me losing the fish. Here we go again. Oh! I went to recast and a big fish was coming up for the dry. That's embarrassing. Got it. Oh my mother.
Hey Alex, I think that's 3 strikes.
2.5?